Welcome to Tea with Titty T. My guests are Nelao and Ashwyn, where we are continuing to talk about all things relationships. Nelao, do you think that men know and understand what women want in a relationship? Because it's not just money. We want more than that. Do you think that men understand that we want what we want out of a relationship?
I think they do. I really think they do. And I think that when men say they don't, okay, fine, there are cases where sometimes women also aren't clear about, what they want, or they maybe don't know what they want. But I also find a lot of men will play the card that they don't know when they actually know. It's nice to say I don't know, because then you don't have to be accountable to your actions. You kind of just do whatever.
Ashwyn is nodding in agreement.
Yeah. I mean, you would know, because when people are saying no, I have no idea what women want. They're not trying to put in effort. Find out after she says, I prefer yellow roses to red roses. Send the roses. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's difficult to be perfect, impossible, but to be decent and to understand another human being is easy. You know that someone wants faithfulness, they want commitment, they want security, they want safety. You intrinsically know this. Every other relationship in your life, you haven't had to be told how to be good to those people. You just are, because you know what a good thing is to do. So everything from the starting point should be understanding each other's love languages. But I think in general, if you're putting in effort, women aren't going to knock you down for that. But this whole thing of I don't know, I have no idea, then perhaps get to know yourself a little more,
A little bit better.
Yeah.
Let's talk about commitment. Is it important to a man's relationship, in your opinion, Ashwyn?
It's important to the growth of every single man.
Yeah.
Commitment is essential, and not being committed can hurt in more ways than one. Of course, the worst thing you can ever do on this planet Earth is hurt someone that cares about you. And I've been imperfect enough to put that burden upon myself. But one thing that's also terrible is that you hurt yourself in the process, because sometimes you find, oh my goodness, I was self-sabotaging because of this unhealed thing. You know what I mean? And you'll be surprised how long you can go on autopilot until something snaps you out of it. So commitment it's a fair thing to do. Otherwise, be single. It's difficult if you haven't sat down with yourself as honestly as possible. And there's layers to it, because if I look back, my personal life, it didn't take me long for me to understand what's healthy and what's not healthy.
Yeah.
But to turn off that unhealthy muscle is a whole different ball game. You know what I mean? And it's in being committed, people open up more to you, and people feel safer with you, and you just get more out of the relationship. If you don't want to be committed, don't commit to anyone. That's just what I would say. But I think it is essential, because again, every human being is a universe, it is a galaxy. You cannot discover what is in that galaxy if your eyes are darting all over the place.
Deep poetry.
Yeah, you're
All right, so
clearly
Nelao, do you think that men struggle or are maybe afraid? Some men afraid or struggle with commitment.
I think afraid maybe only because of there are different reasons. So depending on what you saw growing up, normally is what people are going to emulate. I think that they're afraid because it requires more. I think when men are not committed, or they choose to make decisions that break the boundaries of commitment, that's from an unhealed place. Like, if you're
underlying issue,
exactly, lots of
something.
yeah. So I agree with Ashwyn in that if you're choosing commitment, then be committed. If not, stay single. But that requires being honest and self-discovery, and knowing that, okay, I'm really not in a place where I can be honest or be faithful or stay committed. Maybe I need to be single. But unfortunately, a lot of people are not at that place yet.
Yeah. Marriage, getting married, the long-term commitment. Is that something that let me just ask this question. Do you want to get married?
Yes, I do. I mean,
You, Nelao?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. and when it comes to your friends, your girlfriends, and your guy friends, and when it comes to committing, long-term commitment, do you think that your friends, how are they about commitment, and do they talk about commitment with you?
Again, I'm fortunate to have friends who are women. For the bar I've got, and when we, yes, they're open about it, and they definitely respect my decisions. You know what I mean? And it actually turns out that I'm more likely to let them down by how I approach commitment than to have them feel negative or weird because I'm committed. So it helps. And one thing that does help is that all my friends are people who are seeking commitment, and they're people who are not afraid to hold me accountable. So it's all good, but I'm always aware of the fact that I am building a life with this person. Priorities are not the same. If we've got a certain length in the relationship, I absolutely work with a hierarchy. I will not prioritize you over my woman because I am trying to build a life. The responsibility, what I am asking of her is simply 10 times more than what I could ask of any friend. You know what I mean? So personally, I can work because I emphasize this with all my friends. Please put me second best. Do not cancel a single one of your plans for me. You might have a family with this person. You're going to create so much meaning. And it's not to say that friendships do not matter, but our egos should be flexible enough for us to allow our friends to fully discover their own relationships and fully commit. And our only job in all of that is to wait. You either wait to be a groomsman or a bridesmaid, or you wait to hold them as they cry. But you wait, and you're just going to be there at the end of it. But you can't influence those decisions, and I prefer to stay out of it. I don't want someone to get married, and then they have a conversation, and then they'll be like, remember that one time you picked Ashwyn over me? I don't want that. Let's just go ahead and choose your person.
Okay, let's talk about when the spark dies. When you're in a relationship and it's just evident that you no longer love each other the way you did when you met, but you're still staying together. When is the right time to walk away? I think it's the wrong way to ask it. When do you know? How do you tell that it's time to get out of a relationship?
I would say when you no longer are prioritizing like the well-being of that person, I think that's you need to walk away. Because then when you don't care about the well-being of someone else mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you start to compromise their well-being. I know that knowing that takes a lot of self-awareness, but that moment usually comes very soon on. And I think a lot of people know pretty early on when a relationship isn't working, or when they're not happy, or when they're not making the other person happy. So for me, I would say that point, when you no longer are prioritizing the well-being of the person that you're with, get out before you start doing things that are going to truly hurt them.
Yeah, Ashwyn?
This is me wishing I met her like 10 years ago. I could use this advice. But yes, I couldn't agree more. If it's unhealthy, it's time to leave. I don't think being bored is an excuse. In this generation, there's so much going on out there. You're always going to, I'm pretty sure none of us here know how we feel about Spanish people. You know what I mean? For all we know, we are really attracted to them.
Yeah.
But you made a decision, and that's the whole thing about it. You make a decision and you stick it through. Expecting it to be easy, expecting yourself not to be tempted is ridiculous. And to say, expecting it to be 100% excitement is ridiculous. You're building a relationship. There's a whole lot of life. There's a whole lot of life outside the romantic side. Now, that's not to say you allow the things to die, but I do think that there's a certain part of entering a relationship where you say that it's going to get difficult, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Now, you give it your best shot and you see the chemistry is dying, it's getting unhealthy, you cannot prioritize this person's well-being. Yes, then it's time to leave.
Whew, deeper than rap. Yeah, because I feel like, because I was in a relationship and the person, I could tell there was no love anymore, but he still stayed. And then just at the end, towards the end, when he now decided to end things, it made it seem like I was the problem in the relationship. You get what I mean? So I think also when it comes to those type of things, you don't also want to stay to save and spare that person's feelings. By staying, you're also hurting that person. You get what I mean? Because you don't love the person anymore, so you're staying because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to cause them to go into a depressed state because of how things ended. So I would always say in that instance to be honest with how you feel. If you no longer you know, like, hey, so maybe you're toxic, I'm toxic, and it's just not working anymore. It's important to walk away from that. Let's talk about rules in relationships and those type of nice things. You know, don't eat, order your own food, don't eat my food, that type of thing. Are there rules? Should you set rules in a relationship? And at what point in the relationship should you talk about these rules?
Every institution needs a constitution. We all need to be aware of the
I like
parameters within which we
Yeah.
are. Of course, I'm not going to be petty. I don't know why you would bother having a girlfriend if you're not used to sharing your food. Get over yourself. It's going to happen.
It's going to
She
happen.
will eat out of your plate. It's important to know what our boundaries are in a relationship, and everyone's boundaries are very different, but we're sharing space, spirituality, sharing bodies. You know, you can't just touch someone or you touch, you know, your partner. This is a different ball game. So figure out that has to be at the onset of the relationship, as long as none of it is restrictive. And the reason it needs to be at the onset is you need to ask yourself, you need to be able to be like, okay, I can't deal with these parameters, you know. So yeah, have that conversation, know what the rules and regulations are, and stay in that lane.
And for you, Nelao, do you think there should be basic ground rules in a relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Ashwyn, at the beginning, like be clear about what you need at the beginning of your relationship. But I'm also a big believer in create the relationship that you desire. I don't believe in like all relationships need to look the same.
Of course.
Get to know what you need and then find someone who is as close in alignment with that as possible.
I think for me the biggest issue when it comes to starting relationships and having committed relationships is honesty. People aren't honest about how they feel and what they want. You know, we want to sugarcoat things just so we can, you know, instant gratification just for that moment, you know. So I feel like honesty is probably for me the most important thing if I'm going to start a relationship. Like, what is it that you want? And if you can't tell me honestly that you just want to, you know, wham bam thank you ma'am, then you know, then it's just not going to work. So honestly, I admire honesty, and I feel like it's very important to have that at the start of any relationship. Let's talk about you know, at what point you start, you know, discussing, you know, the rules in terms of the bedroom. I want to get into the bedroom stuff right now.
Oh, we're there now.
I think it's
Sip on
time.
this water.
Let's talk about the bedroom rules and things like that. All right. So how, because obviously people like different things when it comes to the bedroom. How important is it to communicate to your partner what they like and what they don't like in the bedroom?
Absolutely important. It is the most
Let me
important thing.
let me hear from Nelao first before, because I know Ashwyn has a lot to say about that. Let's go to Nelao. Nelao.
Absolutely. Like, do you not want to be sexually excited and fulfilled and satisfied? You have to communicate what it is that you desire. I think a lot of women kind of wait for men to like lead and expect men to just make them, you know, roll their eyes to the back of their head. But a man will not know what turns you on if you don't communicate what that is.
I agree. Yeah, Ash.
Have to talk. You have to communicate, you know, and it's also another reason people end up sabotaging relationships. You don't communicate, and then, you know, you go out there and then, you know, you make it seem like this person was always the right one for you, but did you check with the person you were with? Communicate, know what you like, know what she likes. Very, very, very important. It makes life a whole lot easier, but sexual compatibility is essential. Like, don't scrimp the details. Look at all the fine print. You want to make sure that everything, as much of it as possible, you know, works for you. And of course, you know, hopefully you're attracted to your partner, which goes a long way.
All right, so let's talk about the bedroom, Ashwyn. Let's talk about foreplay. Is it as important?
Yes.
Okay, so it is as important for men as it is for women. Tell me why. Why is that?
I mean, if it's the winter, you don't just start your car, do you? You have to rev the engine a couple of times, warm it up, and then it's ready to drive. If you start it abruptly, it may not take you a very long way. And foreplay is, everything is can't be about the end. It's about the journey. And foreplay is also an opportunity to show each other how much you admire each other's bodies and how important it is for you to take in the essence of, of your partner and, be able to build and just be comfortable in that space, no matter how heightened it is. I think it is absolutely essential for both parties. I may be wrong. I will.
You're not wrong.
I thought I
Please, on behalf of both of us, and please reiterate to him why it is also important for us in
okay, so
foreplay.
before I go into, I think foreplay is like, people tend to think foreplay is just those few minutes or however long before sex. I think foreplay should be anytime outside of the, like, started in the morning. Like, foreplay should be all
Build it
the
up.
time. Can you tell how much I love foreplay?
I can tell.
But it is important, like,
Yeah.
Ashwyn said, warm it up. Like, there's so much to discover besides just penetration. Like, sex can be enjoyed in so many places and spaces that don't just focus on the whatever few minutes that you're penetrating.
The reward at the end of that
Yeah.
journey is beautiful. Okay, we spoke briefly about foreplay last time that you were here, and it's definitely a must for women. Why should it be a constant thing though in a relationship? Because now, let's say we start dating, foreplay is a thing, we do it all the time, and then 3, 5, 6 months down the line, we just wham bam, thank you ma'am, we forget about the foreplay. Why should it be a constant, and do you consider it to be important?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think don't let that spark, that excitement, don't let it die.
Yeah.
I think it's love, like we spoke about before. It's action. So when you drop the ball, when you stop doing those things, that's when, if you consider calling it a flame, that's when the flame starts to fizzle.
Of course, yeah.
Is when you stop doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just
Incorporating, we spoke about toys last time, incorporating that into the bedroom. Ashwyn, as a man, since you're here, as a man, if you, let's say hypothetically speaking, your girl wants to incorporate toys in your sex routine, is it something that you would consider? Are you
I
open
appreciate an ally.
yeah.
For it can get lonely in the trenches. But of course, I mean, look, if your partner is into something, there's no need to be intimidated by it they specifically like that thing with you. And, we're always discovering more about our pleasures as time goes on. So being experimental is essential. I don't think anyone should shun toys. If you know that's what your partner's into, and if your partner's pleasure is a priority, you could also find that, assisting with those toys and, continuing that allyship can take
I
you
like
further than you might have gone
Right.
alone.
You should have a conference about these things, Ashwyn. Teach them. All right, let's talk about fantasies. Okay, I have a fantasy, but I'm not going to say my fantasy out loud right now. But let's talk about fantasies in the sense of, incorporating that into a relationship. Your partner says, hey, so I have a foot fetish. I want to, nibble on your big toe, or whatever the case might be. Is it something that you think is also important in a relationship? Having like just spontaneousness, if that's even a word.
Yes,
in
spontaneity. And
spontaneity.
yeah, I mean, I think it also shows how open and comfortable your partner is with you, for them to want to go into that space with you. I think it's definitely something that you can appreciate. I don't see any way around it. I don't see the negative side to paying attention and trying out new things. And we're all going to want to be desired in different ways as time goes on. I just feel like there's no way this can work for you negatively, but I can think of 1,000 ways it won't work for you if someone can't fully express themselves, because they're saying essentially, look, I trust you to be able to try these new things, and better with you than with someone else. So
Great. Nelao, for you, is it also something that if your partner's like, yo, so babe, I have this fantasy, is it something that you are open to doing?
Yes, absolutely. And it's something that I have communicated as important in the beginning, again, of a relationship, because like sexual compatibility is really important.
It is important, yes.
And so creating a safe space for your partner to be able to express what they desire to try or do, very important.
Do you think it's mostly a woman thing, fantasies and wanting to incorporate that, or is it both a man and a woman thing?
I think it's both. I think it's
You
both.
do have a
Yeah.
couple of fantasies that you'd like to live out.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We're not gonna like mention that because that might get a little bit crazy. Might get a little bit crazy. Okay, so I have a question for Ashwyn. We're talking about orgasms right now, right? We're all grown ups here, and stuff like that. I know for a fact that women fake orgasms because I have. I'm not even gonna deny that. Ashwyn, can men fake orgasms? I want to know that.
They can. They can.
Have you ever faked an orgasm?
I'll decline to answer. Perhaps in my past, but what I would say is that I also believe in retention. So it's very biologically possible for a man to orgasm without ejaculating. So thin line over there. But sometimes, if from my understanding, from the conversations with the guys, if the rounds are too much, it might be a time. Might be time to be like, listen, the soldiers are out. I'm going to put my acting uniform and leave the stage. I don't think it's necessary, though. I don't think it's necessary. It does nothing for no one. Rather be honest if you're not up for it, if you're not getting where you want to go. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it does anything for anyone, really. No.
Nelao?
Yeah, I think it's just honest. I think it can seem like a really easy, for women especially, like a really easy out, right? Because you don't want to have to express that perhaps you're not,
satisfied.
You're not satisfied, which, doesn't even have to be the case. Every sexual experience doesn't need to end in orgasm to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I think, it does more harm than good because you're not only being dishonest with your partner, but you're also being dishonest with yourself, which I think is the more detrimental part.
Do you think men are more selfish when it comes to
Well, judging by how you hesitated to ask me about foreplay, I think the research is in. And unfortunately, my gender is not doing particularly well in that area. I think it can be that thing of being obsessed with the instant gratification, with the act of like sex itself and, just what can this person do for me, being overwhelmed by your fantasies to the point that you don't see the person outside of being just an object for your pleasure. In those instances, which unfortunately are, many, you would find that men are not as forthcoming.
Now, I think we toch giving more stuff. Or what do you say? We're more giving than men are in the bedroom. What do you say?
Yes, I think as a general answer, yes, but also it's almost an expectation for women to be more giving because you're like, okay, you're in your head, is he, a men's sexual pleasure tends to be more prioritized than women, and because, there are a lot of women faking being satisfied, unfortunately, yes, and I think that's really sad. Okay,
so we still, I think this last question that I'm going to ask now is going to be a little bit hardcore, if I can call it that. Let's talk about love making and other types of sex, right? In a relationship, when you're in a committed relationship, should it just be love making constantly, or is it important to experiment with different styles and positions and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's the different range, you know what I mean? If you're a spontaneous couple and you decide you're at some event or whatever and you're to go to the car, that's not going to be lovemaking. It's going to have a whole different term and energy to it. The whole idea is, are you doing it with this one person? And that's what makes it all exciting, to be able to discover different ways of experiencing each other.
Hello?
Yeah, I think it's really, it brings a really nice, exciting dynamic in your relationship when you can try different things. I think if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, that's really easy to get bored, but like, why not switch things up, try different places, try different positions, try different props and things, get out of your comfort zone, because I think getting out of your comfort zone, you also learn what you like. You might, pop on something that you didn't even know you liked one day because you tried something new. So it is really important to just try different things.
Ashwyn, Nelao, thank you so much for joining me. I had such a good conversation. I learned so much from you for this third edition of Tea with Titty T. Look forward to maybe having you back here again soon.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but thank you. Thank you.
It was a huge pleasure to have you. Thank you so much once again, Nelao. Until next time, when we discover more about relationships on Tea with Titty T.